Hello. I decided to resume my quest to watch all of Doctor Who in transmission order, which I'm calling WhoWatch, starting where I left off several months ago with the second episode of the 8th serial, The Guests of Madame Guillotine. And I thought that rather than just keep it to myself, I'd turn it into a bit of a vlog, sharing my rambling thoughts as a mini review with anyone who's interested. So, here we go. The first thing that springs to mind about this particular story is that, for me, having grown up watching Doctor Who in the 1970s when it was first and foremost a science fiction adventure series, the historical stories are always a bit weird in general. I once made a flippant joke about the series Elementary, that I was waiting for the spaceships to turn up. And yes, that's a joke, but there's an element of seriousness to it. I tend to prefer science fiction to most other genres, and so a Doctor Who story without science fiction elements seems unusual. Also though, viewing it with an open mind, which I try to do when doing WhoWatch, it's worth saying that the historical stories fulfil the original series' remit of being at least partially educational. I can't think of any Doctor Who historical story that's set during a time I covered in history lessons at school. So hopefully I'm learning whilst watching this. The other thought I had whilst watching this particular episode is that although it's presented as straight drama, Dennis Spooner, the writer of this story and the subsequent script editor on the series, had a reputation for humour, and that certainly comes across in the Doctor's encounter with the roadwork crew. The roadworks overseer, played by Dallas Cavell, is a wonderfully comic character, as is the jailer played by Jack Cunningham. Mind you, the roadworks overseer gets whacked over the head by the Doctor with a shovel, whilst the jailer pretty much threatens to rape Barbara, none of which would fly terribly well today. One tiny thing I rather liked about this episode was the Doctor's brief friendship with Jean-Pierre, the small boy who rescues him from the house fire. I found that quite touching and sweet. The main story of this episode, with Ian separated from Barbara and Susan in the Paris jail, is pleasantly straightforward and simple. Ian gets talking to Webster in his jail cell and is advised to go to Le Chien Gris and seek out James Sterling. Meanwhile, Barbara and Susan attempt to tunnel their way out, but are scared by the rats and end up being sent to the guillotine anyway. Ian's name is crossed off the execution list. Why? What does this Lemaitre character know? William Russell was on holiday during the production of this and the next episode, which is hidden well by having his scenes pre-filmed at Ealing. He's able to play a full part in the plot, with scenes in which he interacts with only two of the other characters. It's always interesting to me to spot how these sorts of things work in the early days of the series. Also, with my modern eyes on, I'm wondering how much Ian Webster slashes there is, considering how close they got in the jail cell. Anyway, we end on Barbara and Susan being taken away to the guillotine, with Ian watching helpless from his cell. What will happen next?